Yo, yo, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing, man? I want to make some noise for y'all. I appreciate y'all being here. But you already know today what we're going to do, man, is we're going to transform our relationship with money, right? My name is Ross Mack, creator of Maconomics. I really want to give a special shout out because this is sponsored by State Farm. They clearly have been putting on for the culture. They've been a partner of mine at REVOLT for quite some time. So I definitely want to give a shout out to them, right? But more importantly, right, another thing to talk about is today, once again, we're changing our relationship with money, but what's really important is we're getting ready to talk about how to break the generational curses, how to move past the generational traumas so we could then in turn get to building generational wealth. And how we do that? Changing our relationship with money. And so here's the facts, right? More than half of Americans don't have $1,000 saved if there was an emergency to pop up, right? We got a lot of people we follow on Instagram. Everybody look rich, right? We know that. But the actual facts is more than half of the people in this world, in America, don't have $1,000 saved. And on top of that, 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So the reality is this, right? Some people be like, well, maybe we just need to make more money. Not really, right? If you can't manage $1,000, you can't manage $100,000. And the reality is people that make $100,000, a minimum of 6 figures, half of them are also living paycheck to paycheck, right? Then it's like, well, maybe I just need to be rich. Well, athletes within 3 years, some of them are going broke. NFL players, 4 or 5 years for NBA players. So what it boils down to is we got to change our relationship with money. And as you can see, 70% of lottery winners end up bankrupt. So how do we do this, right? We got to change our relationship and understand that money is a tool. Just like you got a hammer, a wrench, a flats, a Phillips flathead, etc., right? Because what's going on is this, right? We're buying things that we don't need, that we can't afford to impress people that we don't even really like. That got to change, right? We buying stuff we can't afford, stuff we don't need in order to do one thing, and that's impress people we don't like, right? We're trying to do it for the likes, for the views. And so at the end of the day, what we have to do is adapt a budgeting plan. Something that most people don't talk about, but it's very imperative to understand our inflows and outflows, right? A budget plan is one of those things that's going to help you know where your money's coming in and going out, but also help prioritize so that you can reach all of your other goals, right? And we're going to talk about the big goal of making our money work for us, but the basic is 50-30-20 rule. 50-30-20 rule, it's important to look at it on your after-take home tax money, right? And 50% of that is going towards your necessities. I want you to think about that as your rent, your mortgage, your groceries. I want you to think about that as your insurance, etc., right? Then next, you got 30%. That could do for whatever you want to. Those are your wants. If you want to go out, hit Jamaica, want to hit your loud man, if you want to go shopping, those are the things you want to do. And then 20%, we paying down debt, we're saving, and as you can see, a sub-bullet, we're talking about how to get out of debt, right? A lot of people in debt, right? One great way is the debt snowball method. Literally, all you're doing is listing all of your debt from the lowest balance to the highest balance. Lowest to highest. So if you got student loans, credit cards, etc., list it up from the lowest to the highest balance. You pay all your minimums on all the other ones except for the lowest balance. The lowest balance one, that's the one that I want you to pay the most to. You keep repeating that each month until that smallest balance is 0. And that's the snowball, because the next month, now that you no longer have that, you got more money to put towards the other ones. And then lastly, right, well, second to last, building up that emergency fund. So if you look at what the necessities is, right, those are the things you need in order to survive, right? Groceries, your rent, mortgage, etc., right? Well, you want to have 3 to 6 times that saved away. Because once again, if more than half of Americans don't have $1,000 saved, well, guess what they end up doing? We're taking out debt, we're getting cash advance loans, and we're further messing up our statistics, right? I don't know if y'all heard, by the year 2053, the median net worth of a black family is going to be 0. So today, once again, by 2053, the median net worth is supposed to be 0. So what we're doing is ensuring that that's not the case. And lastly, right, now that we out our debt, now that we got our emergency fund set up, we're talking about investing. Now, before we get there, I want everybody to make sure you do this so you get my free budget plan. Make sure you text the word REVOLT to 773-232-2577. You ain't too cool to budget. Take out your phone. If it ain't for you, it's for your auntie, your cousin, your son, your daughter, your grandmama. Y'all already know she buying scratch-offs every other weekend anyway. Make sure she know how to budget. Text REVOLT to 773-232-2577. Now I got a question for y'all. How many people are scared to invest? Ain't nobody scared. There we go, my dog. How many people scared to invest, right? We all got that relative that either had a bad experience, right? They was buying AMC, GameStop, or, you know what I'm saying, they had one of their friends say they could turn 500 to 5,000. You know, we all had them bad experiences, right? But the reality is this, right? If you're scared to invest because of what reason? You don't want to lose money. How many people heard that? Oh, man, I don't know if I want to invest. I ain't trying to lose no bread. Well, I got something for you, a news flash. The reality is this. By not investing, you're actually losing money. Have y'all heard that? By not investing, you're losing money. Why? Due to something called inflation. Inflation is the rise in prices of goods over time. So if you look at the very left of this and all the way to the right, you got to understand that the cost of living goes up every year, on average about 3%. The reason that groceries cost less 10 years ago than they do today, inflation. The reason eggs were so expensive a year ago, inflation. The reason that your great-grandmama or grandmama and them was able to get gas for a nickel, but now it's $7. Inflation. So what you got to understand is in a normal year, inflation is 2 to 3% annually. And what we're trying to do is at a minimum, understand that we have to invest because our money is literally losing its value. So I'm gonna make it even easier for you. Because we got relatives that, man, I don't trust banks. I'm gonna just put my money in a mattress or a shoebox. By purely leaving your money there is losing 3% of its buying power. So $100 a year ago could only buy you $97 worth of stuff. Let me help make it make sense. This is literally August inflation breakdown. As you can see, frozen vegetables was 15% more expensive a month ago than it was a year ago. Candy, chewing gum, 10% higher. Apples, 8.5%. Baby formula, 8% higher. I remember it was a baby formula shortage, right? And not just that. These are just food items. Think about gas, how much more expensive it is. Rent, the average rent in New York is $4,000. What you think it was a few years ago? It wasn't that. Inflation. Understand the one thing that's constant is the cost of living goes up every year. So at a bare minimum, that's why we need to talk about why you need to invest. Because of inflation. At a bare minimum, we need to have our money invested, working harder for us than we do for it, because we got to, at a minimum, outpace inflation. Normal inflation, once again, ladies and gentlemen, is roughly 2 to 3% a year. And guess where your money at? In a bank account. How much they paying you to have your money in a bank account? 0.3%. So if you don't invest your money, not in the shoebox, but you like, okay, I'm actually put it in the bank. Well, guess what? The bank is paying you pennies on the dollar. 33 cents for every $100, when the reality is you need to, at a minimum, be making $3, right? Because 3% inflation versus what you're getting in the bank, 0.33%. This is why you need to invest. Another reason, we ain't trying to work for the rest of our life, right? You know what I'm saying? We can't save our way to wealth. We got to grow our way to wealth. We have to invest our way to being wealthy. And it's another thing, right? It's another stream of income, right? Only having one stream of income is too close to having zero. I had to click on my hand, on my soul. One stream of income, you're too close to only having zero, right? And another thing is compound interest, right? The eighth wonder of the world. He who gets it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it. Compound interest works the same way. If you're taking out loans, right? Credit card, you got your Capital One, you know what I'm saying? You got your Bloomingdale's card, whatever. It works the opposite way. But if you're truly invested, your money's making more money. And what we're talking about, you're invested, say you got $100, you make 10%. Well, guess what? Next year, you got $110 invested. And that's what compounded is. And each year, it gets higher and higher. So let's talk about what investing is, right? I ain't talking about, you know, give me 500 and I'm gonna flip it to 5,000. I'm not talking about one of them little gifting circles. No finessing. Investing is the oldest form of making money in this world. And let's talk about what it is, right? When you invest, you're buying assets with the expectation that whatever you're buying is gonna appreciate in value in the future. Sometimes it could be dividend paying stocks. It could be buying a multi-unit and now you have tenants and guess what? They're paying you rent. But at the end of the day, investing is going to involve making some informed decisions about how your money is going to work for you. And when you're doing that, you got to balance the risks and the rewards with it. But one thing I'm going to tell you, I promise you, investing is not rocket science. It don't look like this. You don't need a PhD. You don't need to graduate from Harvard, etc. Like at the end of the day, one of the greatest investors of all time is arguably, he's number one. Me and him neck and neck. It's me and my cousin Warren Buffett. And he's going to tell you right now, right? By periodically investing in an index fund, a know-nothing investor can actually outperform the investment professionals. And what we talking about, investment professionals, I'm talking about people that are making millions of dollars every year, managing billions of dollars. And guess what? By you investing in an index fund, you're gonna do better than them on average. Literally, if it's 100 of them in the room, by you not knowing nothing, purely buying the index fund, you'll do better than 80 of them, 80%. This is a fact, right? And the real thing is this, right? If you don't find a way how to make money in your sleep, then you're gonna work until you die. So let's talk about investing, right? And when we talk about that index fund, the most common one and the one I recommend, your very first investment needs to be the S&P 500. Can y'all say S&P 500 for me? S&P 500, right? And here's the thing, right? These are 500 of America's best companies. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat. At the end of the day, we're betting on America, and guess what? 500 of these companies are going to continue to do well, right? What is a stock, right? Buying ownership in a company, guess what? You now have the smartest people in the world working for you. By buying some of this stock, guess what? By buying the S&P 500, guess what? You're now gonna have Tim Cook working for you. Elon Musk working for you, right? And the thing is this, right? Like, ladies, if y'all wanted to build the most ideal boyfriend in the world, he's gonna be a certain level of height, he's gonna make a certain amount of money, he's gonna look a certain way, a certain amount of loyalty, etc. This is the perfect boyfriend, effectively, right? Like, this is 500 of America's best companies that are gonna represent all the sectors, right? The top companies in energy, the top companies in utilities, top companies in tech, right? We got McDonald's up there, right? We got Coca-Cola, Pepsi, we got Amazon, Netflix, Microsoft, Google, and the list goes on. There's 500 of them. But the reality is that we're already spending our money with these people. And so at the end of the day, I just want you guys to understand this. No matter if, once again, you're Republican or Democrat, the average return of the S&P 500, the average is roughly 10%, right? And the reality is this, right? A lot of people ask me the question, I don't know how to start, what to do, this, that, and the third, or better yet, how much should I start with? The reality is this, it's not how much you start with, it's how much you can afford to invest every month. You open up that brokerage account, and now we gotta start paying yourself first. Set up auto invest into the S&P 500, ticker VOO. If you don't know nothing else, your first investment needs to be VOO, S&P 500, and on average, once again, it's 10% annually, right? And once again, being consistent, what you're trying to do is invest several $100s every month in the S&P 500, and in 30 years, you'll look up and you'll be a millionaire. Another thing, how many parents we got out there? The testament of a great parent is giving your kids the opportunities and the exposure that you didn't know when you were growing up. Not just giving them the new Jordans and the Gucci shoes. The reality is this, we're trying to teach them what we didn't know rather than just giving them what we didn't have. And so how do we do that, man? We're talking about building generational wealth. That's what we hear, right? We're breaking generational curses. Who trying to break generational curses in their family? And how we do that? By literally changing our relationship with money, and we're talking about how to do it. Whether this is owning real estate that we can pass down to the next generation. Because generational wealth is giving our kids and their kids the freedom that we didn't have. Freedom of time, freedom of allowing ourselves to dream, right? There wouldn't be no Facebook if Mark Zuckerberg mama was on welfare or they didn't have no savings. Like, at the reality, it's like this. In order to truly give our kids the opportunities we didn't have, it starts financially, because now we have the freedom to dream differently, right? It's hard to start thinking about building a multi-billion-dollar company if you're in survival mode. And how do we get out of survival mode? Our parents can't be living paycheck to paycheck. And so a few things we want to talk about: investing in our children and life insurance, right? At the end of the day, the inevitable, unfortunately, we all gonna pass away, right? However, this is truly one of the cheat codes in how to build true generational wealth, because if we know we're gonna pass away, if we know, and it depends, right? A healthy person in their 20s and 30s could pay about $50, $100, right? And you'll have $1 million insurance policy. We're talking term life. Literally, a healthy person in their 20s, 30s can literally get $1 million of coverage for, call it 60 years or so, term life, right? It's a definite term. But the reality is we spending that in the club. I don't know about y'all, live in Chicago. 3 drinks in the club, $60 instantly. Ladies, it costs y'all $100 to get y'all hair done, right? That's life insurance. You know what I'm saying? Like this fellas, you buying a 7, $100. It's just that simple, right? And so the one thing as us as parents, we can't be thinking about, you know, what could I do? But I want us to be thinking about, unfortunately, when we do pass away, the easiest way to build true generational wealth is actually having life insurance. And another thing, right? One of the things I had that I insured, that when I had children, I wanted to open up several accounts. Because for me, another thing, right, when we're talking about giving our kids the opportunities we didn't have, give them a different level of freedom. How many of y'all graduated with student loans? I definitely did. You know what I mean? Some of y'all probably like, man, I ain't never paying them, right? They're going to have to come get it in blood. I feel that. But the reality is there's a way that I could tell you right now, you can start ensuring that your kids literally don't have to get student loans. First and foremost, right, by putting money aside every month for them. So my kids got a 529 account and a custodial account. A 529 account is literally, think about it like a retirement account for them, where that money's going to be going in, invested, once again, in the S&P 500. That money's going to be growing tax-free, though. Why? Well, it's so as long as you use this money for educational expenses. We talking room and board, new computers, and okay, my kid might not go to college. He or she gonna get an athletic scholarship or academic scholarship. Cool. Well, guess what? You can still use that money, or you can roll it over to a custodial Roth IRA. Right? A lot of people gonna say, well, I don't want to do that. Well, here's the reality, right? Opening up these accounts is gonna give your kids the type of freedom, and then lastly, a custodial account. Custodial account, right, is literally an investment account that's managed by you. And the reality is we want our kids to ball differently. Like, I brag different, right? Like, when my daughter just turned 3 yesterday. Shout out, happy birthday, Rossi, right? And my people, we don't give her gifts. She gonna outgrow her toys. She gonna stop playing with them. And she definitely gonna outgrow all the shoes and the clothes. But the money's gonna outgrow her. So what we do is we give my kids investments, right? Different stocks, et cetera. And that's the way we're trying to really break down all that generational trauma, right? And build generational wealth. Because here's the problem. College tuition, really inflation hit there the hardest, right? And call it 18 years is gonna be half a ticket, $500,000 to go to college. And so the reality is if we start investing today, we can help the burden of paying for college for them, right? So understand that, right? The average student gonna graduate with roughly $37,000 in student loans. But if you think about inflation, they might be graduating with closer to $70,000, $80,000. So the reality is by investing today, you'll have a better tomorrow for them. And that's it. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ross Mack. This is Maconomics. I want to give a special shout out to REVOLT World for having me. We're going to do some Q&A too, right? But I also want y'all to see these QR codes, right? I just released a book. Amazing. What is it? I'm your financial plug. I want you to definitely know that. And also connect with me. Follow me on social. Having the Maconomics Investment Club, obviously. We got a show, Maconomics, on REVOLT TV. But if there are any questions, okay, there we go. How you doing, Queen? Say it to me and I'm going to repeat it for the people in the back. I love that question. So a person that's just starting out investing, you don't know anything much. However, how should you start looking at that company, right? Is it a meme stock that am I looking at this because somebody posted it on IG? Here's the reality. Understand what the business does. Whether this is cryptocurrency, stocks, you got to understand what the business itself does. And the very first stocks I recommend buying are the companies and the services that you use on a day-to-day. So if you got an iPhone, you should own Apple. If your kids, like mine, they on YouTube every day watching Gracie Corner or Miss Rachel, you should own Google, right? Google owns that. And so the first thing I say is understand what the business does and then take a 5-10 year approach, right? It's kind of like dating. You sitting across from homeboy, okay, where you see yourself in 5 years? If fools get the stuttering, okay, this ain't the person for me. But also ask yourself, what's the business gonna be in 5 years, right? Like for me, I look at the world, I say, okay, AI is gonna be huge. What companies are gonna be beneficial? Who has the global footprint to benefit from AI? Oh wow, by the year 2030, guess what? They're not gonna be even selling gas-powered cars anymore. So what companies are gonna be prominent in the EV space, electric vehicle space, but also what makes electric vehicles go? Okay, battery. Who the battery manufacturers? Who own the charging stations? Who has the infrastructure? So for me, I'm looking 5-10 years down the line. But step one, you got to understand what that company does for you to even say, okay, a guy or girl, if I'm gonna date you, I gotta at least know your background, what's your track record, how do they make money, and are they making money? I only recommend buying profitable companies.
Hey, so I heard you speak of long-term investments and stuff. So how you feel about with long-term investments and trading options?
Amazing question, right? Long-term investing is your long-term play. That's your retirement plan, right? And I just gave you the blueprint to be able to retire a millionaire. Literally put $300 every month into the S&P 500, you'll have over $1 million in your long-term investment account. However, when we're talking about buying options, what you have to understand is that you have to get a skill set that's on par with the greatest people in the world, because those are the professionals that are managing billions of dollars, right? However, options are very lucrative. You just got to understand that sometimes it could be a zero-sum game. And what you want to do is you want to, and there are a few ways to look at it, but you want to buy where you believe there are, the stock itself is at a support level, right? Where people are going to say, oh, this is a perfect spot to buy. So it's different ways that you're going to be charting, right? But some easy ways is buying, when RSI is below 30, selling when RSI is over 70, right? But that's a little more complex. However, I think there's nothing wrong with, in your overall investment strategy, having a long-term play where you're putting the bulk of your money while also still saying, okay, right? They're like, at the end of the day, it's like when we were in high school applying to colleges, right? Everybody gonna tell you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So therefore, I don't want you only trading options, because the for sure fallback plan is definitely owning the S&P 500, right? Because there's no guessing in that. You're going to own the best companies, and as the economy grows, your bank account is growing. Options is a little more gambling. However, there's ways that you can have, and I have a Maconomics investment club where I teach people how to do this, but it's literally, we talk about it, it's the highest probability setups. Highest probability setups, you're buying at a level where historically most of the astute, most of the professional investors are going to come and buy at that level. And the same, you're selling when the most people are going to be selling. But there's ways we find that.
First and foremost, King, big up to you. I saw you and found out about you through Get Smart with Money on Netflix.
My brother, respect.
And also in working with Anthony O'Neill. But my question is, what is your thoughts on the Dave Ramsey philosophy on getting out of debt first in order to start investing? And if not, if you don't believe in that concept, what should be your debt to income ratio before you start literally investing monthly?
Dave Ramsey's a great question, and I appreciate that. If y'all don't know, I got amazing Netflix, Call Your Boo, tomorrow, tonight. Get Smart with Money, one of the top films on Netflix. Get Smart with Money is one of those. But amazing question, right? He asked everybody heard it. So should you invest when you're in debt? There's two types of debt. There's good debt, there's bad debt. And shout out to Dave Ramsey, I rock with him. If you are literally buying, if you have the bad debt, and we're talking credit cards, right now, credit card interest rates are the highest of all time. Right, there's $1 trillion of credit. There's $1 trillion. Us as Americans have $1 trillion in credit card debt. It also has the highest interest rate currently. So if you're sitting here paying 25% interest rates on your credit cards, 20% interest rates, I do not recommend investing, because once again, the safe way I'm telling you how to start is by owning 10%. By making 10% annually. So it doesn't make sense to be paying Capital One 22% to then be in turn trying to make 10%. That's robbing Peter to pay Paul. However, if we're talking, I got a crib that's 4%, 3%, nah, that's just leveraging. You're utilizing the bank money to own an asset that in turn you could pass down to your kids. And once again, you're paying 3% versus the trade-off investing long-term, and on average, you're making 10%. Great question, though.
Hello, how you doing, sir? For people who've been investing for a while now, what's the best way to diversify your portfolio besides stock?
I love it, right? At the end of the day, that's the name of the game, right? We're trying to make as much money as we can while we sleep, right? He who don't find a way to make money while they sleep gonna work till they die. And so other ways of diversifying, you could obviously, the next thing is real estate, right? At the end of the day, and we start off with stocks because it has the lowest barrier to entry, right? Most people, you work at a corporate job, they're gonna tell you, here are the different benefits, right? 401k, guess what? You're owning stocks as well as bonds, right? But the next thing is real estate. Now, there's a low barrier to entry where you can buy REITs. The same way you would buy the S&P 500, you could buy a REIT, a real estate investment trust, where now you're putting your money in alongside other investors, and they're owning real estate property, and they're paying you effectively dividends for doing that, right? So that's one way to get in real estate. But I would also recommend real estate owning property, a FHA, right? A FHA loan, you literally only got to put 3.5% down, right? Most people think you got to put 20% down. I think next is real estate, buy a multi-unit, live in one, and rent out the other units and have your tenants pay your mortgage. So I love that though. And you know, another thing is just safe money. Buying treasuries, buying high yield accounts, they're paying roughly 4 to 5% right now. So that's just free bands and it's zero risk associated with it.
Last one.
Your last one.
Shout out to you, bro. I flew all the way out here from Chicago as well.
Shout out to Chicago in the building, bro. Big love on my auntie.
Yeah. So, as far as like somebody who's just now starting to invest, right? What would you say would be the best route? Would it be going through your bank, going through your 401k, or like a personal company that'd be like online that people can just Google per se?
I love that, and I like the way you said that because this sponsored by State Farm. Them other people ain't paid for this stage. But this is what I say. There's a multitude, right? You can have a normal brokerage account that you could open yourself, but also want you to also have your 401k or your Roth IRA because we're talking about money in different tranches. That 401k, Roth IRA money, you're gonna touch that when you're retiring, right? 59 and a half. However, if you wanted to start investing today, you can open up a brokerage account. There's several. I'll name a few, right? They ain't paid, but it's cool. You got your E-Trades, your Robinhoods, your Fidelities, Vanguards, etc. But the reality is by having that money, you could touch it tomorrow. The only thing you got to understand, you just got to pay taxes on it, right? 401k, that's different, right? Roth IRA, that's different. But the reality is, and the most important thing, and I'm gonna say it, it's not, most people is playing double dutch, not knowing when to get in the game. It's not how much you start with or where do you start, what to buy. It's how much you can afford to invest every month. Investing is a long-term game. In the same way we as a community is conditioned to pay our bills, to pay our taxes, to pay our rent, our car note, go to the grocery store, we gotta pay our future self by investing. So set up that auto pay, that auto invest, and let it take 200, 300, 400 out your bank account, but investing that, right? So you guys got the budget plan that I put up there. I hope everybody got that automatically now. And the reality is you want to have a line item because we taught to pay our bills first, but pay yourself first. But great question, brother, and shout out to Chicago, man. We out here. But I appreciate everybody, man. Once again, my name is Ross Mack. Make some noise for yourselves. Once again, hit them QR codes, connect with me. I got an amazing book, man, The Pathway to Financial Freedom. I'm the Wealth Connect.